Hello guys, welcome back. So this lecture is going to be a continuation of the previous lecture. Okay, so in the previous lecture we have seen how we can write a code, how like in with the helper recursion method design pattern, right? So now in this lecture we are going to see pure recursion. Okay, so like what happens? Let's say you got a problem statement, right? So you can solve it in two different ways. Either you can create a recursive function which you can use as a helper method, or you can solve that problem with the pure recursion. That means you just write a function. In that function itself you handle everything. Okay, so here in the previous solution, if you see, let me zoom in a little bit. We have wrote a recursive function, okay, which we are using as a helper method for this particular function, right? Okay, so what was the objective of this function was, like, this function wanted to get all the squared numbers of the array of number whatever we pass here, right? So it's basically this one, right? Input should be this and then output should be this, right? So we have created a parent method where we have created a recursive method and we are calling it inside of it, right? Now what we can do, we can write a pure recursive function which can handle all these things. Okay, so let me show you what is that. Okay, so pure, so you will hear a lot of times this term, right? When you come into the in our industry, so you don't get confused. That's why I'm explaining you all these things, right? All these things are ending up with recursion only, right? So if you know the recursion basics, then you will easily understand whether it is a recursive function or not. Okay, so there are multiple terms but they are ending with the same thing only, recursion, right? So let me show you how we can convert the same thing in the pure recursive function. Okay, so if you want, you can take a screenshot of it, or if you already have the code, that's well and good, right? So slowly we are going to convert this into pure recursion. Okay, so let me copy it here, right? Now what I will do, I'll simply remove this parent function from here. Okay, don't worry about this squared array, or let me like remove the autosave. Okay, so I have removed that parent function. Right now we have a recursive function here, right? So what I will do, I'll simply use or create the array inside of this recursive function every time. Okay, let me move this code a little bit up. Yeah, okay. So now what I'm doing right now in this function, I'm creating a new array which will basically store all these squared numbers, right? So now here I have to do a little change. If there is no num array length, then we have to return this particular squared array. Okay, now because this is the only function where we are going to handle everything, right? So that is why if we are getting no length in the array, that means the array is empty, then we are going to simply return whatever we have here, okay, in this squared array. Otherwise what we will do, in squared array we will push the squared number. Okay, so this is first thing which we have to do. If there is no length in the number, then we are returning this array. Otherwise we are pushing a number, the first element from the number array which we are getting from the parameter, right? We are squaring that number and we are pushing that into the squared number array. So far so good, right? Now here is a little tricky part. It's not that much tricky, we'll see. Okay, now if you see here, every time we are calling the same function, right? And what I am doing, I'm simply removing the first element from the num array. Okay, so it will be something like this. So if I'm taking this, let me stretch it a little bit and let me zoom in. Okay, so if I'm using this, if I use slice, and then if I pass, just have a close look here guys, right? So 1 2 3 4 5, right now it is returning this. So if I type 1, then as you can see, it is giving me 2 3 4 5. That means it have ignored the first number. Okay, now again with this 2 3 4 5, if I again use slice 1, then I'll get 3 4 5. Okay, so this way we are simply removing the first element every time, and then we are again passing it as a argument in the function. Okay, so every time this array will get shorter, right? Now what we have to do, as soon as we are getting some data here, we are checking if the length is empty, we are returning this. Otherwise what we are doing, we are simply squaring the number and then we are pushing it into the squared number array. Okay, so now we don't have to do much, we simply have to concatenate it. Okay, we have to simply concatenate it with this one. Okay, so what will happen, whatever this function is returning, okay, so let's say it is returning us one empty array or anything it is returning, right? It will get concatenated with the array which we have created here. Okay, and you have to keep in mind one thing. See, every time we are creating a new empty array, right? Whenever this function is called, a new empty array will get created. Okay, it is not like in the we have created one array and the elements are getting pushed into that array. It's not like that, right? On every function call, a new empty array will get created. Okay, and we will see it like how it will work, right? So just be here for a moment. So here I'm going to reassign it. So what basically I'm doing, we let's say I have pushed one number squared into this array. Okay, or even if I have don't if not I have not pushed anything, then also whatever I am getting in return from this function, okay, I'm simply merging it with the squared number array. Okay, so it is something like, let's say you have two arrays, one contains square number of 2. Okay, let's say it is 4. Okay, and another array is giving me what let me pick some examples. Another array is giving me these two numbers. Okay, for an example. Okay, so now what I can do, in order to merge them, I'll simply use concat. Okay, like this, right? So as you can see, whenever I use concat, it is simply merging these two arrays, right? And it is giving me a copy. And yeah, one more thing, this concat, these slice methods, these are not going to mutate your original array, right? They are going to create a copy only. Okay, so even if I use number dot slice or concat, they are not going to affect your original array or original data structure, right? So yeah, now let's continue with our example. I think we are almost ready with the pure recursion, right? All we need to do is we simply need to return this array at the end and we are done with our example. Now we can remove this return, because in the parent function we were using this return some squared some number array, right? So we can return that from the same function itself. Okay, now return squared array. Okay, so here what I'll do, for the sake of simplicity, I'll simply remove it from here. Return array. Okay, here I'll store it, and this one I'll concatenate it with this one. Okay, and before that I'll just do a console log. Okay, so this one will contain, let's say, squared array. Okay, then you will get to know easily like what is happening. And in case if you don't understand with the console log, then we will see in the call stack. Okay, don't worry. Now return array. Okay, now what we are doing, let me add some extra spaces. Now what we are doing, we are simply pushing something into this squared sum array, right? Squared number array. Okay, so squared number array, we will console log every time like what we are actually getting in the squared number array, and then whatever we are getting in return from this square number array. Okay, this also we are now storing it in a separate variable. Okay, and that variable we are logging here, so that we can see what we are getting after concatenating it. Okay, so now let's quickly run this function. I think here we don't need it, so I think this much will be fine, right? Squared number array and 1 2 3 4 5, right? So let's see. Oh, sorry, I forgot the commas. Apologize for that. Yeah, now let's hit it. Uncaught exception. Okay, that was an idiotic mistake. Reference square num is not defined. Square num is not defined, it is saying, right? Square num is a function we have declared here. Cleared. Okay, I have not saved this file, guys. That was also one of the silly mistakes. That is why I use like auto save, because I forget to save the files, right? And I start facing these issues. So please don't mind. So yeah, let me stretch it a little bit now. So just have a close look at this code. Then we are going to see the console logs of it, right? Now here we are getting some console logs, right? In the first console log, we got 25 and return array is empty array. That means it have reached to the very last function call. Okay, so if you have seen the call stack video, then there you might know already, like once the last function from the call stack gets popped off or returned, then only it will go to the previous one. Okay, so right now it have reached to the this part of code. Okay, the fifth call of the function. Okay, here it is giving us the square number as 25, which is basically this line. um 1 second, this line, right? Square number, if there is no length, sorry, it is giving me this line, right? It is pushing it into the square number array. Okay, and then in return array we are getting empty array, right? Return array, this particular function is giving me empty array. Okay, so basically this line, right? So that is why we are getting empty array. Now what we are doing, we are simply concatenating this. So 25 and empty array will give us 25 only, right? Okay, so now in the next function call, we have 16, which is the square of this number, right? So 16, and then from the return array in this one, basically return of this function, we are getting 25, right? Which is return from the previous function. Okay, now we are concatenating it 16 and 25. So it will give us 16 and 25 in one array, right? Now we are back to the previous function, which is basically this step. Okay, so now in this step, it is squaring this number 3 to 9, and then from the previous function call, we got 16 and 25 in return, right? So they got concatenated here, and then we have returned it at the end. Okay, now what will happen? 9, 16 and 25 will get concatenated because of this line, right? And then it will go into the previous function call, so which is basically this one, right? So here it will do the square of this number, which is 4, and then from the previous function call, since we are getting 9, 16 and 25 in return, so we are going to concatenate these things, right? So as you can see, it is simply building our array from the last element, from the end, right? It is building our array from here. It is taking this and then this and then this, sorry, and then, sorry guys, and then this and then this and then this. And by now you already know like why it is taking this way, right? Because see, whenever I call this function, it will again call this function, it will again call this function, again call this function, and again call this function. So this way we have 5 execution context on top of each other. Okay, so once the last execution context will get popped off, we get the value of the previous execution context. Okay, that it will return something and it will get stored into the previous execution context. Okay, so this way, basically it will return everything and then it will get concatenated, and at the end we are getting our final array, right? So this is how it goes. And still if you are not clear, let me show you in what to say, call stack again. We're just gonna do a fast forward check, and then because I'm not going to explain everything over and over again, guys, right? So I think which is it's a script.js, right? This is the one, and we are at the file. Let me stretch it a little bit. We are here, right? So let's see what happens. And before that, let me just quickly comment these two. Okay, I'll simply remove these and then return num array. Okay, I was about to add the debugger here. Sorry for that. Yeah, now we are getting our code without any comment. So what I'll do, I'll simply add a return, add two debuggers in this one and this one. Okay, and here I don't think I had to add because here we are already capturing that, right? So now let's see how it goes. Okay, let me quickly zoom out a little bit. Otherwise, you guys can't see, right? Okay, this much only I think I can. So now you have to keep an eye here. You have to keep an eye here and you have to keep an eye here. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll simply call this function. Okay. And then it will take me basically to that debugger. Okay. Right now we are in the debugger. Okay, it took me to the very last function because we are simply returning it everything here, right? And we are calling it. So I don't actually want that. I simply want it to go into the first one basically. Okay, so I'll refresh it and then again I'll call it. Okay, so right now in the call stack we have just one execution context and the number array is 1 2 3 4 5, right? Return value is unavailable, squared number is unavailable. And why they are unavailable? Because here we are waiting for this function to return something, right, which is not yet called. Okay, so now I'll play it. Or by the way, you can do these things also. You can go to next step with this one and then down up. You can basically check all these options as well. It's not like every time you have to play this only. Okay, I play it because I have to explain you guys, right? So now if I play it, see, it is going to into the return number where again it is calling this one. So as soon as I play, then you will see like again a new execution context will get created. Okay, again a new execution context will get created. I think it's zoomed enough only, right? Hmm. Yeah, now let me just play it. See, as soon as I played this one, a new execution context got created for this one, right? Which is basically for this function. So this way, every time we are calling this function, a new execution context will get created. Okay. So right now in this function, we have the number array as 2, 3, 4, 5 because we are using slice, right? So it will basically remove the first number and then it will give us the array 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, if I play it again, so again it came here since nothing is matching. So again it will come here. Okay, squared number is 4. We have already pushed it into this execution context. Okay. Now the return array num array is 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the return value squared number, basically this one and this one are unavailable because they are dependent upon sorry, this one and this one, they are unavailable because they are dependent upon the next function call, right? So let's play it one more time. See, as you can see, the array is getting smaller in the parameters, right? 1 2 3 4. Okay, let me play it one more time. So I think this will be the last one. Okay, now since we have reached the last function call 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now it will start popping off the elements. Okay, so right now here if you see, in the previous one, we have number array as 4, 5, right? Return value as unavailable. So return value will get only when this function will return something. Okay. So basically, whenever this execution context will return something. Okay, and what it will return? It will return the squared number array. Okay, so it will return this particular thing, right? So here we have squared number array as 16, number array is 4 and 5. This is parameter value, so ignore it. Just keep an eye on this one, right? So I'm playing it. So what will happen? The execution context of this one will get popped off. Okay, now it got popped off, I think so. Sorry guys. So the last one was remaining, right? Where we are like removing all the elements. So the empty array case, right? Then only like it will return the empty array, right? Apologize, I forgot that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right now we have 6 execution contexts, right? So now this one will return empty array, right? So what will happen? Here in the return value, we'll get empty array here. Okay, so let's see it quickly. That one, that execution context got popped off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have 5 execution contexts. Okay, now we are getting empty array here. Earlier it was unavailable. Why? Because this function haven't returned. Where is that function? Let me quickly see where that function went, bro. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so see, as soon as this function returned empty array, right? So it is getting stored into the return array, and that is how we are getting empty array. Okay, now this function is going to return 25, right? So basically this thing, and then this will get set as a return array for this execution context. Okay, so right now its value is unavailable. So let's pop off this execution context from the call stack. See, we have popped it off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think it's not popped off yet because we have added a debugger here as well. Okay, now it's popped off, right? Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 execution context, right? Now whatever we have written from the previous execution context got stored as a value here, right? So now I'll quickly play it so that you guys can understand. Okay, so in the previous one, in the previous execution context, we have written value as unavailable array. This one is going to return like 25 comma 16 or 16 comma 25, right? Because at the end we are concatenating these two values, right? Squared number array and then what to say, return array, right? So after squaring them, at the end we are going to get, let me show you. See, at the end it is going to return an array which contains 16 and 25, right? See, so squared number and squared number array is finally 16 and 25. So this is what this execution context will return, and which will be stored as a return value for this execution context, right? So let's go into this one. See, now that execution context got popped off, and now in the return array of this particular execution context we have 16 comma 25, right? So same way, now if I play it, see, now everything got concatenated because of this line, and then this is what we are going to return at the end, right? So now this function will return 9, 16, 25, which will get stored as a return value in the previous execution context. Okay, so let me play it. See, the execution context got popped off. Now we have 9, 16, 25. Now let me play it again. Same way, here we are going to return 4, 9, 16, 25. Okay, now the return value is 4, 9, 16, 25, and the what to say, num array, sorry, return squared array is 1. So I think it have reached the last execution context. Okay, after this it will simply return the final result, right? See, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. This is how it returned the final result. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can basically use pure recursion in order to solve your problems, right? So these are the two like design patterns for recursion. Like most of the times interviewers try to confuse you with the different terms of recursion, because if you have just learned recursion, if you're not aware of pure, what is pure recursion, what is helper function recursion, and in case if they ask you a question related to that, then you will be like, bro, I just know recursion, I've never heard about that pure recursion and like helper function recursion sort of things, right? So in that case, like in order to like save yourself from those situations, that is why I'm explaining these things. everything is connected only, everything is similar only. It's just a slight difference in the writing of the code of these things, right? So you don't have to worry about it too much. Okay, and obviously you can use the same technique to debug them and to see like how they are working in the terms of call stack. Because if you understand like how these things are working in the call stack, then you can easily explain the interview or anyone the recursion, right? So yeah, by the way, I'll attach this snippet in the description of the video. You can go check the description, you will find the link of the code. Okay, you can open that link and then you will find this snippet, right? So this is it for today's lecture. See you in the next one.